Are you recording it? You got this recorded too? All right.
Recorded and streamed.
And live now. Right. You, me. Yeah. There.
Recorded and streamed.
There.
Okay.
It's magic.
This technology, man, it's amazing.
Richard Campbell.
It's been too long, Fred.
It has been too long. This is a conversation that I've been waiting to have. So with that, you're on my podcast.
I am.
Known as Ask That, which has turned into a helpline, apparently, during the conference, which isn't quite the intent. But I have been wanting to have just this conversation with you. We've been friends now for, I guess, close to a decade.
Yeah, more than 10 years, I think.
And I think the interesting part about when you and I talk is the unconversation. You kept asking me, like, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
And I kept giving you a non-answer.
Yes.
And so here's the non-answer show of what we're going to talk about. So what are we going to talk about?
I can talk about a lot of things. I'm interested in a lot of stuff. You know, I've learned to harness my ADD for the forces of good.
So you've been here a few times.
Mm-hmm.
You've been gone.
Missed 2 years.
Missed 2 years.
2016, 2017.
You run a conference. You've been involved in community.
Yep.
You've driven across the United States doing stuff. You've gone
times.
Across the globe.
Yep.
Why? Why do you do it?
And the funny part being, and you're an introvert, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Like I find it hard work to be on stage.
Yes,
I
would agree.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
In the end.
I was going to say in the end or the beginning.
Yeah. No, I like having presented. Presenting is hard work. There's no two ways about it. But I realize, and maybe it's an anomalous reaction, is like the applause is enjoyable. You get a rush from that. Not everybody does.
Yeah.
But, when I discovered that in myself, because I was never the person who wanted to be on stage. In high school, I was a stage technician. I liked fixing things and building things, and like that I enjoyed. I liked interacting with the actors, but had no interest in being the actor. So it was a surprise to me to discover, in the early 90s that got up on stage, talked about, I swear, reporting. Yeah. Something like that. Got a round of applause for my talk. I went, that felt good.
Sure.
And then you sort of hone your craft. It becomes a thing.
What do you think is one of the reasons we started that conference, which we're at live today, was to this notion of community, and I felt like there was this gap. In fact, when we had started this, there were some large media companies, large publications that said we would never kind of succeed in the Midwest.
Right.
You've been all over the globe, and I think you've only missed 1 or 2, 3, 10 countries. You're well more versely traveled than I am.
There's 200 countries. I've been to slightly less than half, like 95.
That's a lot for most people.
Okay. There's a lot of countries. Like
one of the things I realized when I was speaking across the United States was how just we all think we're American and everything's the same, but the reality is it's the geographies and the things that happen are super, super different.
And the cultures that form this country, it's a very diverse.
Very. And you don't have to go very far for it to be that case.
Mm-hmm.
So taking that kind of globally, how do you feel like the software side of things or the tech community is different across the globe?
It's remarkable how much of software development is done in English, irrespective of what country you're in.
Oh, interesting.
That's a very odd truth.
Not just speaking, but also in written
code. In the code that you write and the comments you write.
Wow.
Although often comments will be in the local tongue. You will get annotations where the English words, because so many words
I never even thought about
in
that.
software development are manufactured in English for they are that noun, and so they just never go away. It's kind of normal in that respect. But I think the most powerful aspect of this is so much of the creation of software is an individual's effort. Is that moment of 4 hours, that head down, creating a thing, picking up the threads and creating that. And then when it comes out, you're elated. You get that rush. It's no different than the applause. Yeah. Yep. Sometimes you're clapping for yourself. You get a good little sprint piece in there.
I helped somebody.
And then you want to interact about it.
Yeah.
And often in our industry, you're the only one in the room, or you're the only one who does what you do. And so that sort of desire to converse or to connect with someone who understands your achievement, who knows to clap.
Sure.
That something has happened.
Sure.
That happens so routinely that it's like, why do I make podcasts? Why do I get in front of audiences? Any of those things is about letting them know, like, you're not crazy. That's actually normal.
Yeah.
I think I spend more time than anything going, That's normal.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
What is it when you go in as a consultant to an organization? It's that broad view you have across all these different companies and experiences you've had, so that you can actually say, that's normal, that's normal.
Right,
oh, wait, that's
right.
kind of weird. We should look at that.
Yeah.
So I think over and over again, when you talk in the technology community especially, we're all checking in with each other. It's like, is this really normal? Have you been your experience? Like that kind of exchange, so that we can focus on the few things that are odd, that do need to be improved, that could be better.
Do you think as a global community we could be doing better?
Always. That's inevitable.
Sure.
Well, I think we're doing well.
As a tech community.
Yeah. I think, it is very easy to emphasize and focus on the small failures.
Sure.
And
everybody likes to focus on the negative. It's easy. It's
so
easy to
easier.
complain.
And we're also wired for it.
Yeah.
Because generally, when we were, just banging the sticks together, what was bad tended to kill you. And so it was a good thing to sort of focus on that. And we've not really unwired our brains for that. We still deal with that.
Sure.
Listen, the internet has gone around the world. It has fundamentally changed our civilization. Smartphone sales are starting to plateau because we're running out of adults to sell them to, right? Like there's about 4 billion smartphones in the world. There's about 4 billion adults.
Yeah.
So it's not evenly distributed, without a doubt. You go to different parts of the world, they're rarer, but they're not non-existent. So there's a lot to celebrate.
Yeah.
What I've seen going around the world is that technology helps everybody. They help them in different ways.
Yeah.
They have different sets of problems. But it's still profound. It's still fundamental. The ability for a Kenyan farmer in western Kenya to flip open a flip phone and get an accurate weather report.
Yeah,
that was impossible. He's a subsistence farmer, but he can afford a phone and he can know the rain's come tomorrow and prepare.
But there's a lot of infrastructure stuff that goes with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like at times we're kind of in these bubbles of, we think everybody has, gigabit to the house.
Yes, and unlimited bandwidth.
Right.
I mean, I am talking about a flip phone,
Yep.
and he's using Edge.
Sure.
2G data.
Yeah.
But it's enough.
Right.
Right? Kenya's also the place where you can buy a Coke with your phone, which I can't do here.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they skipped over a whole lot of infrastructure that we built and went to the latest stuff.
So, I mean, taking that particular example, like how do we as like a global community kind of work better to say, you did this really well and you skipped over for maybe, logistical or infrastructure reasons.
No reason to pull a wire.
But I mean, the chip pin garbage that the U.S. did, we decided to sign as if that mattered.
Well, now the challenge in the U.S. was your banking system is deregulated and really quite unstructured, and so it's very difficult for you to make advancements that way. Where, north in Canada, where we still have a fairly tightly regulated banking system, we flipped over. Right, we got it done. You'll get there. You just choose a hard path.
we like to do that.
Yes,
that's what we do.
Yeah,
but I mean, okay, knowing that, and everybody's in tech, then. Like, how do you influence that?
One person at a time. We are trying to raise a tide, right? The reason we're out here and doing those things and being on stage and making these presentations and publishing our blog posts and making our podcasts are all about letting folks know these are next steps. This is what more can be done. Here's how we move forward. It's still rising the tide. It's a lot of water.
Right. So you look back. You've been doing this a long time.
Yep.
We both have been. I guess I'm 20 years into this journey. What would you say some of your biggest learnings have been?
The classic one and the mistake we make over and over and over again is you're not your customer.
Yeah.
Like, how much software have you built for you and expected someone else to be delighted with it? Just that basic, you have to be in someone else's head and really look at the work that they're doing to see how you can make it better. And you can. Right, but that over and over again, it's an act of empathy to really understand how someone does their work and improve on it.
Yeah.
Make it faster, make it more efficient. Where you used to be able to do 10 orders, now you can do 50.
Yeah.
Those effects are just not trivial to do, and you have to get there.
Yeah.
We've gotten away with fairly poor software for a long time because there was so much room to improve. That even though you could have got them from 10 to 100. You got them from 10 to 50, and they're still happy.
It's funny you say I actually think it's getting worse.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more software and there's a lot more places for us to go. But when you look at, if you look at forms over data type work today,
Sure.
it's pretty refined. There's still choices there, but that's more of an engineering discipline than the more leading edge stuff. Like you look at the craziness about trying to work in 3D, any of the augmented virtual reality stuff. So mainstream dev, that the vast majority of this industry does day in, day out, that need to do forms over data, there's a handful of tool sets that make sense in that space, and they're pretty good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I say that just in the broader spectrum of it feels like timelines have gotten tighter, there's more to do, because we have so much technology kind of everywhere, and software's kind of, I don't want to say pushed down the stack, but it's, at every level,
it's being commoditized.
Yeah, absolutely.
The iPhone is largely responsible for
sure
convincing regular consumers that software is not magic. It's just stuff you use.
Right.
And so when you as a developer trying to talk about an app you're working on inside of an organization and people are frustrated with it, it's like, well, it doesn't suck on my iPhone.
Right.
So why does it suck on there?
Right.
We have now presented to the greater non-technical community an awful lot of pretty good software, and they've now set a bar that's higher. Their expectations are higher.
Yeah. The one thing I've always really liked about mobile is it forced you to focus on a good design experience. Right.
You've got so little real estate to work with.
Right. If you suck, like you're just never going to rise up, and thus it's not going to get used. And unlike other places where you can kind of force things down on a phone, that's not the case.
Well, more and more we don't have a captive community anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I think cloud architecture is going to do that to us too.
Yeah.
Because pretty quickly the real metric is going to be utilization.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only measure that actually matters is utilization. We don't sell boxes anymore. We sell hours.
Yeah.
And so
back to the MIPS.
Yeah. And back to this idea of value is shown in its consumption.
Yeah.
That if you don't use it, then it's not valuable.
So in this world of AI and 3D and driving cars or self-driving cars, whatnot, like what scares you the most? Because there's a lot of big things today in a lot of big industries, and you really, anybody is really, any of it's ripe for disruption.
For sure. I am always frightened when technology is succeeding in the dark.
How so? What do you mean by that?
So, this open AI movement, it's not about making the Terminator. It's not about building Skynet, right? Because we don't need to. We can wreck the civilization with a much simpler technology than that.
Yeah, right? Totally. Right.
So
we don't need to build a computer to do it.
No. We can. But the whole thing
here
is
a few worldly leaders that just might do it on their own.
Yeah, they're trying to find a way, right? And we're already being able to distort. The internet is this great truth machine. It also is a great lie machine.
Yeah.
And so lies have to be manufactured in the dark. The more light you shine on a lie, the faster that lie dies.
Sure.
And truth tends to continue to survive.
Sure.
The more light you shine on truth, the more obvious the truth becomes. Yeah. And so whenever I see technologies being developed in secret, behind closed doors, you don't know if lies are integrated into them. And you're going to have to unpeel that onion. When I look back at the moves that folks like Bill Gates and Elon Musk made around the early wave of AI, and this is in the 2012, 2013 phase. Okay. So as that next generation of technology took off, that we're now getting more and more consuming, the real reason they're ringing the alarm bells is that most of the big innovations were happening behind closed doors, and they could be exploited for things that would be damaging to our civilization. And the real press was not don't build it, but build it in public, right? Do it open source. Share what you're doing. And so that we get to have that conversation about, is this appropriate? Is this honest?
Do you feel like all the right constituents are involved in that open source conversation?
We're still working our way. What came first, the car or the driver's license? The car. Right?
Of course.
It was only when the car was successful enough that we started needing, as a civilization, to put rules around it.
Sure.
Why we have lines on roads and traffic lights and driver's licenses and so forth. We are in the midst of that right now with social media. Social media has now been successful enough that as a civilization, we're starting to talk about what should the rules look like.
Sure.
Right? And you're seeing the beginnings of that. Well, as artificial specialized intelligence propagate, become much more common and broad and easy to build, a similar set of rules will ultimately need to be developed.
But can we have rules without having government regulation?
Well, what do you think rules are?
All right, fair enough.
The trick to understand here,
because I feel like
this is
sometimes
a uniquely American thing. This idea
okay.
that your government is going to ruin things, not make stuff better. That is an Americanism.
Is it really?
It's absolutely an Americanism.
Interesting.
The thing you have to remember about government is us. We are it.
Sure.
We elected them. It's our votes, right?
Yep.
Your Constitution says we the people, right? This is a recent phenomenon. Only in the past 50 so years has there been an undermining of your democratic underpinnings, which are not people. They're the institutions that people work in.
Yep.
But it is uniquely an American phenomenon that you would presume that if we create these rules and you put them in government, they will be bad. It's incorrect. The correct thing is make good rules and make government follow it well.
Absolutely. So then you take complex topics like AI or artificial intelligence, and how do you make good rules, not just in your own country, but then globally?
Because
on the software side, right, we do this globally regardless.
Yep.
Without any.
We're pretty transparent to borders.
Totally.
But we've done it before. Once upon a time, a car was a nefarious, demonic machine that shouldn't be allowed in civilized countries. It took time to agree on what side of the road to drive on. And by the way, they never ultimately agreed, right? But we've pretty much settled on where a steering wheel goes, where a gas pedal goes, where a gear shift goes. All around the world, we ultimately made deals on that. All around the world, we've ultimately agreed on how a seatbelt should work and how an airbag should work and how to make those things safer. It takes time.
It does. But we have this exponential size of complexity with that. A car is a finite set of parts.
Yep.
Artificial intelligence is a unfinite set of.
No, it's pretty finite. It's just not well defined yet. We're still learning the dimensions we're putting around it, right?
Fair.
We are in a very experimental phase. Cars were pretty hard to define in the late 1800s when some of them were steam powered. And some of them, they had different drive systems. They were all over the map, and it was kind of out of control. And ultimately, capitalism drove the most successful ones towards the top, and government bodies built regulations to insist on making them safer, and to have consistent rules on how they would be operated. We're on that path. This is what it looks like to be in that. Those conversations are going on right now.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by. I'm not somebody. I try to stay out of politics, but I think of the things that we build and how easy it is to be global, right? We can push an app to a store, we can write a website, and it's across the globe. And if we're mindful of the cultures and things that are there, it's very different. When I would go to Bulgaria, it's a very different place than it is in the United States.
I met with a group of developers in Yakutsk, Russia, in March.
Yeah,
it was negative 20 degrees outside, so we stayed inside.
You're super dedicated.
Yeah, but they write games there, and they deploy it in the cloud. There's not a lot of internet infrastructure in Yakutia.
Yeah.
But these guys are successful and productive because of the internet, because of cloud, that they found a place they love to live. It's a very outdoorsy place. It's kind of like Wisconsin in that sense of, they like to ice fish and they like a good hike and they ride the tarpons, the little horses, which are a big thing there. They also eat them, which is disturbing.
Sadly, I've had horse too.
But they write some successful games. They've got a business. They've got a group of companies there that are making games and pushing them out into the world. That's what.
But did that
global nature works?
So in that scenario, and I'm just curious, how that even came to be. Did that come as I don't want to say a cheaper resource, but in this global economy of commoditizing software development, did they kind of rise to the top in cost structure that gave them the opportunity, or was there something culturally there that allowed them to fit that niche a little bit better?
I think somebody had a good idea, and they've had a couple of wins.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to put down anybody.
They were baffled. Why was I there? And I'm like, you guys got more going right than wrong.
Sure.
What makes a community? one of the interesting things about living in a small town like that, I mean, it's a couple 100,000 people in serious winters, they by instinct take care of each other. One of the ways I explain it to them is like, you see a car pulled over on the side of the road.
You stop.
Would you stop? Of course you stop. Why? Because they'll die.
Right.
That's the reality there. So your instinctual support of your community turns out it's really great in business too.
Yeah.
It's great way to build software.
Sure.
And so they had, in this relatively small community, already had government on board, the financial system on board, the local university on board. Like, they had all the ingredients to do this incubation of new companies. And they were succeeding.
Yeah.
You can do that anywhere.
Yeah.
Just, why did Yakutia have a head start? Because they already had a culture that you looked out for each other.
Yeah.
And it meant they moved faster than most.
Sure.
They weren't aware that was unusual.
Right.
So it only takes a weirdo like me coming in there and going, by the way, you guys have an advantage whether you knew it or not.
Right. So we talked about what scary things. Then what excites you?
All of these things excite me, right? All of this motion forward, holding still is what upsets me, right? That we're stuck, and we're not stuck. That all of these pieces are moving. So William Gibson, the guy who first coined the term cyberspace, also said, "The future is here. It's just not evenly distributed." So the opportunity to go out and find where these pockets of future live and spread them around, that's really fun. That's an exciting thing to be able to do. And a lot of it is easily available to us as tech people. We are largely building the future right now.
Sure.
And when you get a piece that works, it's good to share it.
And I think this is kind of where I'm going to set a final questions. How do you, as somebody who has produced an epic ton of content, I mean, how do you feel like that sharing piece should happen or could happen? Or, I don't know, what's a good way to share?
I love the evolution of the sharing models that are going on right now. I look at things like Patreon and Indiegogo, all of that,
Twitch.
Crowdsourced.
Yeah.
The ability for the viewer to directly contribute, that the relationship between the creator and the consumer is one-to-one, it's direct, that there is no need for intermediaries of any kind, or at least wise intermediaries get out of the way. That evolution is quite powerful. I mean, Donna Rock's been around a long time, and it is supported by a group of sponsors who want to speak to the listeners.
Sure.
And we work pretty hard to make sure those two things fit together really well. And we're also old. Carl put out that first show in 2002, before a lot of this crowdsourced stuff even existed.
I can remember back in those days.
Yeah, so we're now starting to look at, does it make more sense for us to transform into a crowdsource-driven show? Because it does seem to be the contemporary approach, and because people do like that direct connection.
Yeah, as somebody who's in all of this like you, I mean, it's amazing the YouTube, the Twitch, the tools. I mean, you can get a full editor studio for pretty darn cheap. And I mean, we're broadcasting today on software that costs $25.
Yeah.
And that all amazes me. I don't think everybody thinks that they're in the creator place, or they have something of value to share, and I feel like that's such a wrong assumption.
There's so many ways to create, but as is typical of humans, once you're good at something, it's hard to value it. So the thing you do naturally that many other people are just like, I don't know how you did that. You forget that's actually our act of creation,
right?
And that you should show it and share it and expand it.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I had made a video of changing out the speakers in the rear of my truck. Right? It's just, I don't know. I just decided to do it. I needed to change these speakers. I wanted to kind of go this different route than the way they were. There's been something like 10, 15,000 people watch this thing, and it was like, I don't know why. It just wasn't that good.
Carl was experimenting with video and decided to play a song.
Okay.
And so he just shot himself playing each instrument and composed together. It was really just an experiment, posted on YouTube. Of course, people are astonished the man can play every instrument. The reality, of course, is he's been playing all of those instruments for 20 years. Yeah. So he doesn't think a lot about that.
Right.
He was literally just doing a video experiment.
Right. Yeah. All right. Here's where we're going to end it. This is this question, and you know it's coming because you were just watching this little video we put together earlier today. So what does community mean to you?
Well, it's people. But it's people with a connection to each other in some ways. They relate to each other, they matter to each other, they care for each other, they help each other. But it doesn't need to be any more than that. All of the other things are ancillary around that. People connecting with each other.
Love it. Mr. Campbell, thank you for coming to the show.
My pleasure, sir.
You're the first. No, you're second international person. I had somebody from Germany. But, Canada, you guys watch over us, so it's great.
We're America's attic. You don't go up there very often. You do some cool stuff there.
I've been heard that one before. I've been to Toronto. Yeah. I don't think that counts. Does that count?
Yeah, it's like I've been to Buffalo.
Right, that doesn't count, does it? No. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for coming out.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for being on Ask That.
You bet. I'll see you again.